Hello again, YouTube! This is Dr. Kendo, and I'm here with Scribblenauts Unlimited. This is the object editor commentaries where I create your favorite characters from movies, gaming, television shows, all that kind of stuff in this game. Well, one feature of this game, which is the object editor, and the game is Scribblenauts Unlimited. I just make whatever is most popular and most requested by the most amount of different viewers each week. We started off with a mecha as the source object, and you've noticed that I took off the head of the mecha, and then I moved the head up. And we also removed the feet and the arms of the mecha, and I'm going to type in an ostrich egg right here at the start because we're going to put that over the torso. So I did have to shrink the torso a bit, although we don't want to cover up the entire torso just yet. We're going into the 29-page library. On the 10th page, there's an arm that's kind of down in the bottom middle. It's this mutant arm right here. It's in this shape that we painted kind of a purpley color right there. And then we're going to take another ostrich egg down below that 29-page library arm shape. Again, the 29-page library, the reason it's called that is because there are 29 pages of it, and it's a library or collection of just various shapes and things. And so there's a lot of body parts and arms and miscellaneous type stuff in there that you can grab from. And so then we took an iguanodon and just take the back bicep, you know, the upper arm piece, that bicep of the iguanodon, to be kind of the thighs here for Alexandrite, which our creation is today. And then Siren, we actually took the back leg of a siren, and of course that's the monster, not the like alarm siren, and that was for the legs and basically the overall shins and feet, all of that stuff down there. And then of course for the shoulder pads here, we started off with a yarmulke on the top, and then a hemisphere is what we're going to use. You can take that from the geometry library if you're playing here in Scribblenauts Unlimited. If you're playing in Scribblenauts Unmasked, you want to type in hemisphere for that, for the bottom part that's like basically white-ish light blue color. And then chalk, the writing chalk, of course, because there are 3 different options that you get when you type in chalk in this game. But chalk is going to be for starting off the biceps of the arms right here for Alexandrite, and for that magenta skin. But then I'm also typing in Jenny Green Teeth. We took her back arm, and that's going to be for kind of the main parts of the arms and stuff. So you want to make sure that the chalk was put on the same green grid or same basically joints as those hemisphere and yarmulke shapes are. But the arm from Jenny Green Teeth is going to go on the green grid for where the mecha's arm was. So exactly where the mecha's arm was is where you want to put down both Jenny Green Teeth arms. And then we're also going to do a capsule, which is the shape. It's just kind of like a line or whatever. You want to put the capsule on the same grid as the yarmulke and the hemisphere and the chalk. But then the second Jenny Green Teeth arm that's kind of painted this lavender or purple color, that one you want to put on the same grid as your other, the green arm that we did for Jenny Green Teeth. And so again, this is how it's going to be basically, is that the magenta parts both follow the same movements, and then the Jenny Green Teeth arms all follow the same movements. Now for the next set of arms, the ones kind of that are the lowest and near the midsection of the character, you want to just put those on the body if you're going to do it by my design. So I, first put them on the body, the torso's kind of grid or whatever, and they will not move, since the torso basically doesn't move. That's okay. It's, this is Scribblenauts Unlimited. This isn't going to look exactly, and move exactly how the character does in Steven Universe. It will probably be pretty dang close, actually, but these arms right here, the reason is, you could attach them to the other arm grids that you did for the other 2 arms on each side, so you could just have all the arms move in the same exact direction at the same exact time. But for me, I wanted it to be a little bit different, so that it could show at least that these arms do move independently of each other, and so I put those ones on the torso. It was a mecha, the arm of the mecha or whatever is going to be kind of the main part of the hands and stuff and for the arm, and capsule was the magenta skin part of the arms. And we did reach the stamp limit, putting down the tail end of a death worm. We'll talk about that in a second because we're actually going to be now moving on to the scripting. Here in the properties editor basically is where you can edit health and things like that. And so in my series for Scribblenauts Unlimited here, I like to read background information and fun facts about whatever we're creating. So let's go. It's Alexandrite in Steven Universe, which is the fusion of garnet, amethyst, and pearl, who made her debut in the Fusion Cuisine episode. She has 6 arms and magenta-colored skin with a face shape similar to Pearl's, but interestingly enough, her face is like a mask that covers a second mouth with sharp teeth and a long tongue. She can speak from both mouths, but since we're limited by stamp space and due to the obvious fact that her monstrous mouth is often not visible from just a normal viewpoint, we don't need to create the second mouth down below know when we soon go over to make our head creation. But being a fusion of so many gems, Alexandrite is capable of wielding many different weapons, such as Opal's bow, all of the base weapons of the gems that she's composed of, and honestly much more. For the scripting here in this episode, we're going to make her shoot out a big pink fireball whenever she loses or gains health, and that will represent the fire-breathing ability that she shows off in the fight against Malachite, for example, in Super Watermelon Island. But now that that's all done, we've got the head right here. Stamp space limitations mean that we're going to create the body and the head separate from each other. So what is this stamp space limitation? Well, even though it's called Scribblenauts Unlimited, this game does have a limited amount of stamp space, and a stamp is basically like this golden egg, for instance, that we put over our head source object, or what we're typing in right now, a tooth fairy wings. We're going to grab one of those, and that's going to be for the visor, but that's a stamp piece. So anything that you're using to create your object overall, any of those little pieces and objects that you use are a stamp, and you do have a limit to how many you can do. Now typing in an arapaima, and we're going to grab this kind of fin that is really kind of in the middle but on the bottom of the arapaima right there, and that's going to be for the nose, pointy nose right there of Alexandrite. And so the golden egg, of course, was kind of a better shape than just head, but I didn't want to start off with golden egg as the source object because we would still need to turn it upside down or whatever to turn it around. So in essence, we're not saving any stamps if we do that. So starting off with the head was just fine for me. And that also, often the head kind of helps me keep the measurements like good and everything's proportional and just placed in, I would say, a good spot for how we're going to script it to fit on our character. I typed in choker, and the choker is going to be for the mouth if we just basically make it all black, pitch black color. Move that down for the mouth, and a dot was on the forehead right there to be that gemstone. And we're going to type in an eyebrow and actually do that twice and paint it all black as well, because those are going to be the kind of plump lips for Alexandrite here. And I'm going to type in pom-pom next, and we'll make that be the hair here. And so we're going to want, I guess, plenty of pom-poms, so at least 3, I think, will do the trick right here for this head creation. We are probably going to have more than just 2 objects to make our Alexandrite as a whole. This is a big character, and it requires lots of stamps. So then I just typed in a grenadier, the fish, of course, because there are several types of grenadiers, a bird or a soldier, but no, we wanted the fish, and we grabbed its fin, kind of that front bottom fin. And then we're, of course, putting that down for 3 times around the dot gemstone right there, but then I'm going to type in a black mamba to get some of the hair. We're taking the tail end of the black mamba. That last tail piece kind of looks like a piece of hair or strands of hair kind of coming down there next to the golden egg face. And then for the other side, we just did hair. And then going back to the 29-page library, we can scroll through the pages until we get to page 23, and in the top right corner, there's this arm that we're going to use as Alexandrite's neck. And so that's all looking good. I think it's a troglodyte's arm, if I'm not mistaken. So you may have some luck just typing in troglodyte if you would rather do that and taking its back arm. But anyway, we'll go to the properties editor for our head object right here, and this is very important. You're going to want to script this head object under the equipment tab on the left. Make sure you check off the circle that says can be worn on the face like glasses, and that'll put the head in kind of the right spot that we want. We may have to move it around a little bit, who knows, but I'm going to start off with a square as the source object for our next kind of piece of the character. We're going to type in a pom-pom because we want to do another object for hair. This is going to be her hair that goes kind of below the neck, we can see it from the back and everything, and so you want to script this one to can be worn on the back like a backpack. And so once we put it on, of course, it will go behind the torso and behind the character and stuff, and so it'll look like just the long hair of Alexandrite in the back. So right there you can see kind of where I've positioned the pom-pom. When we put that down, we want it sort of on its side, kind of turning it 90 degrees clockwise, almost, and then we're putting it not really centered over the square, but sort of moving it to our right a little bit, and that's gonna look good. And so one last kind of little thing for the details here on the chest. Since we ran out of stamp space on our body object for Alexandrite, I did go with a glue as the source object and create this kind of chest piece here. We're using on the 22nd page of the 29-page library, there's a tooth fairy wing type shape, and it's not the same tooth fairy wing that we used for her visor on her head. It's a different one, so you have to go to the 29-page library instead of actually typing out tooth fairy wings. You can if you want that other more rounded shape, but I want this kind of pointed one. And then a dunce cap is going to be for this triangular type shape right here that has that magenta coloration, and so we'll remove that that real fast so you can see that the glue was underneath all of this, and a dot was for the gemstone right there. But we did go into the color pattern library on the 5th page, and in the top left corner there's that kind of almost tie-dye-ish rainbow design or whatever, and then give that a whole teal hue over that. And so that's all looking good. So we've got kind of all of our pieces just laying here on the ground for our Alexandrite. So let's put them all together. It doesn't really matter which order you go in, but I would actually probably suggest doing the chest piece first, that glue chest piece. If you ever kind of put it on and then remove it and take it off and you can see that it's like not facing the right way, I basically just attached it to myself and then moved the other direction, and that'll get it facing the right way. You know, if it's ever facing the wrong way of your character, but you want to glue it on. And so now I am sticking that on after putting the head on, and so it will right now, actually, if I'm putting it high enough, it will be kind of glued to the head object rather than on the chest. So that's the only thing, you know, you may want to watch out for if you don't want it to move with the head. And it doesn't really matter a whole lot, but that's just if you're being persnickety. And of course I put down the backpack hair or whatever so that there is hair in the back. You can hardly see it because, you know, in essence, all of the other parts of her are covering it up. Now, Alexandrite is pretty big, but so is Malachite, and so we've got them both on screen right here, and this is so reminiscent of the Watermelon Island episode where they fought, so why not? Well, we're not going to reenact it exactly, but why not kind of pay homage to it, I guess we should say. I made the Alexandrite hostile with an adjective, and so we'll have Alexandrite go ahead and take on the Malachite, and it looks like Malachite is doing a good job, which, I mean, Malachite did in the episode, but Alexandrite is more powerful. I mean, there's more of them, you know, the Malachite's outnumbered. Am I right? Am I right? You guys know the reference. But it does look like Alexandrite is going to be the winner of this fight, but I would say it was mostly fair. You know, I think the chances were pretty accurate to the show. You can, of course, edit their damage and health and all of that stuff to whatever you want it to be, but I thank you guys so much for viewing this. It's awesome to have your support. There's been a lot going on lately. You know, I've been trying to work out a little more, get my health in line, because you guys know that I've been dealing with bodily pains for so many years, and I'm trying to better myself and better that. And I recently got a new iPhone, and I'm playing Pokemon Go, so I would really appreciate it if you guys actually also check out the Pokemon Go episode if you want to see some more commentaries and stuff. I did upload the first one, so we will have an annotation to that coming up very, very shortly, so I'll catch you on the next vid, and thanks for viewing. Like a spectacle so you can be the viewer, and
down the road of twists and turns, always anxious to see what's within. We can look ahead to the point of no return, to the rest of our lives as the spectacle begins. I've been down the road of twists and turns, always anxious to see what's within. We can look ahead to the point of no return, to the rest of our lives as the spectacle begins.